Docker Compose. When let's say in a particular project you are having a front end, you are having a back end or some API logic, and you are using some database, right? We have studied that container are independent, right, and each container should do only one task. So for front end we are having one image, one container image. For back end we are having one container image, and for this also we are having another container image. So there are three separate images for three different aspects of our application: front end, back end, and database. Now in my Docker file, I have to write some instructions. So to create an image for this front end, I have to write one Docker file, for this another Docker file, for this another Docker file. Instead of writing multiple writing multiple Docker files or multiple commands to create the images for three different components of the application, right, we can use Docker Compose. Docker Compose is used for multi-container applications. Multi-container applications. What does it mean? See, I am having, front end I am putting in one container C1, this I am putting another container, this I am putting another container. Three separate containers I am creating using three different files. So I am repeating a particular task three times. Instead of that, we can use Docker Compose. Docker Compose will help to create the images and containers with a single file, with a single command. Instead of repeating multiple times, you can do it at a single go. Or we can say some batch processing, batch of images or batch of containers I am creating it with a single command. That is Docker Compose, right? Some simple concept. Let's understand what is Docker Compose. One best practice for containers is that each container should do one thing. Standard rule: each container should do one thing. While there are exceptions to this rule, avoid the tendency to have one container do multiple things. We should make sure that each container should do only one task, right? You can use multiple Docker run commands to start multiple containers. Since for this example, for front end, back end, and database, I am having three containers. Three times I have to write command, Docker run command, to start multiple containers, right? But it becomes very difficult for us. Why? To manage all that, right, you should know all those commands, you should do it repeatedly. You have to manage network, all the flags needed to connect containers to those networks, right, and to clean up also very complicated. So when you are having multiple containers for an application, dealing with them individually is difficult. Instead, what you can do? Use Docker Compose. You can define all your containers and their configurations in a single YAML file, right? So in single YAML file, for these three containers, all the commands, instructions related to these three containers, I am putting it in a single YAML file, right? So it will automatically take care. So if you include this file in your code repository, this YAML file, right, anybody who clones your repository, they can get this YAML file and they can do the Docker Compose automatically. Okay, so let me show you here. See, I am giving here in a single, using single Docker Compose, I am giving front end, I am giving the image, back end I am giving the image, database I am giving the image. Okay, we are creating image, no, we are giving the name of the image, right? Test name tag format we are following. So those three images I am giving in a single YAML file. See, image, its name is my Woo app, backend image colon my Spring Boot app, database image colon Postgres, right? So all three images I am combining them and I am putting in a YAML file, right? So Docker Compose is basically to compose multiple images and to create multiple containers to deal with multiple containers in a single command with a single step instead of doing them separately, because it becomes very difficult for us to manage all those containers separately, right. So, let us understand more about this. Docker Compose is a tool for running multi-container applications. For an application, for a project, if you have multiple containers, right, so we have to use Docker Compose. On Docker, defined using the compose file format. A compose file is used to define how one or more containers that make up your application are configured. It is a YAML file. Compose file is a YAML file, right. You can create and start your application with a single command, docker compose up. That is it. What will happen now? That YAML file will be executed. In that YAML file, there are so many images, all will be initiated, right. Docker Compose works by applying many rules declared within a single docker compose.yml file. I have a file .yml file which will contain all the rules for all the containers, right. These YAML rules are human readable, we can easily understand them, okay. It provides an effective way to snapshot the whole project from 10,000 feet in a few lines. So, if you see the YAML file, you will understand the whole structure of the project, how many images are there and where all each image is there, everything you can see it in a single go. Okay. You just need to use the command docker compose up, that is it. It will take care of all the running all the images for front end, back end and a database in a single go, because dealing with single containers is difficult, right. So, let us see an example. Let us take a Dockerized web application consisting of front end, back end and a database. We would like to split these components into 3 images. Definitely we, for each front end I will have one image, for back end one image and for database one image. It means these 3 images will be running in 3 different containers, right. So, the configuration something will look like this: image colon, this is first image, second image and third image. I have 3 images now, right. So, what we do? Okay. So, this thing, this way if I write it, automatically dealing with starting these 3 images or creating containers is easy if you do and club all these containers, all these images in a single YAML file, right. So, let us before we go, let us understand 2 important concepts in Docker Compose, that is volume and network. We need to know about volume and network. What is volume? Volumes are physical areas of disk space shared between the host and the container or between the containers. Okay. So, volume is a shared directory in the host visible from some or all containers. So, in volume you can see all the containers, and network define the communication rules between the containers, because see these 3 are 3 images, this will go into container 1, this will go into container 2, this will go into container 3. For this web application to run, to work, all these 3 containers should talk to each other. From front end somebody will give data, it will go to back end and it will go to database, from there come back to front end. You know how web application works. So, communication between 3 different containers is required, that is achieved using the networks. Okay. So, common network zones will make the container services discoverable by each other, right. So, Docker containers communicate between themselves in networks created by Docker Compose, right. So, network and volume I will talk about that. Okay. So, what are the benefits of this Docker Compose? What is the advantage? What is the benefit of clubbing the images into a single YAML file like this? Okay. So, if you see it has lot of benefits. Simplified control, okay. Define and manage multi-container apps in one YAML file. efficient collaboration. Shareable YAML files support smooth collaboration between developers and operations. Rapid application development. You are not wasting time creating one container after the other, right? You are doing it quickly. Okay, so all the containers are you are dealing all the containers, all the images in a single go. And then portability across environments. So once you are moving your container from one environment to other environment, okay, see in my development environment I had 3 containers, C1, C2, C3. In my sit again I have to move these 3 there. That headache is not required. You have a if you use Docker Compose, all 3 can go in a single go, right? So it has lot of benefits. Okay, so we will understand this much better practically about Docker Compose. Basically, it is a tool for running multi-container applications. When your application, when your project has multiple containers, right? How do that work? That is possible using Docker Compose. And it is an YML file, configuration file, which contains all the images and their tags. Okay, so this is about Docker Compose. We will see more about its practical aspects.